You laid out a huge number of challenges and impacts, and I think we're also just at the beginning of seeing these things play out, some of which will have decades-long negative impacts for centuries to come. Can you talk about how the leadership in Connecticut is trying to probably not get caught up in the day-to-day chaos, but trying to develop a strategy to respond and reduce the harm on your state and communities?
Yeah, I think Connecticut does. We have great leadership in Connecticut, and I'm so lucky, blessed by some incredible colleagues who are so smart and talented. And I will say that I think these past weeks have presented a bit of an ideological challenge and a crisis of sorts for me, because I have been known as pragmatic. I have been known as working across the aisle to get things done. I've worked in a bipartisan way because I do believe that if we come to the center, that's where we can get the movement and we can move forward together, taking important steps. And I've been proud when I go out to town halls and various community events to say that 90% of what we do in the state of Connecticut is done on a bipartisan basis. I've been really proud of that. But watching what's gone down over the past several weeks has been disheartening to me. And I wrote an op-ed on this because I really feel like there's been a shift, and we are seeing unprecedented cuts to just create a huge detriment to our society, really. I mean, we're talking about the basics: housing, food, shelter, water, clean water, transportation. I mean, cuts across the board, public health. We're going to create a humanitarian crisis. And I am not hearing anything from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. And that's been really concerning to me, because I don't want this to set Connecticut on a path of hyper partisanship. We're seeing that at the federal level. And now more than ever, because of that hyper partisanship, we are going to need to rely on the states and local governments to really get things done. We are going to need to go into the coffers and figure out what it is that's important, what defines us as a state. And I believe it's taking care of our people, making sure that that we've always been a sanctuary state. We want to make sure that people who come to Connecticut are well cared for, that they have the food that they need, that they have the jobs that they need, that they have an education, a free and public education. All of these things are so important, and that they can get from point A to point B for connectivity, for workforce, for recreation, for all of these things. And we are fortunate that we have been planning with leaders to have a budget reserve fund that is healthy and stable. And for the first time, we are really contemplating what that looks like. Are we going to need to dig into our rainy day fund, into our emergency coffers to provide for the people of Connecticut? And this is on the heels of some very good years where we've been able to give back to the people. We've been able to provide important tax cuts. We had our child tax credit that's been had been successful. We want to push for more of that. And all of these things come into question, whether or not we're going to be able to raise our Medicaid reimbursement rates, because now we're talking about a severe Medicaid cut. Are we going to be able to raise these desperately needed raise this in a time when they're desperately needed? Or are we going to have to cover a huge shortfall because our federal government has decided they're no longer going to support these important programs? So these are very scary times, important times for us to make these considerations and work together in a collaborative manner. It's never been more important for us all to lock in arm in arm and figure out how to protect our people.